Everyone, my name is Matt Harris. I'm the author of this curriculum on the book of Esther. Most of this curriculum comes out of a study that we did with some of our students this past semester, and so I hope and pray that it feels accessible and applicable and practical for you and your students and your youth group today. First question we have to ask, though, is why study Esther in the first place? I think the obscurity of Esther, the fact that it gets lost in the shuffle of the Old Testament, is a great reason to dive in and take our students to something they may not have much familiarity with and show them, hey, this is this incredible story of the Bible. Look at this beautiful and crazy story with all these twists and turns that feels like it could be a modern movie. Secondly, a lot of the Old Testament and the story like Esther in particular can feel very far off. Right? What does a Jewish queen of Persia have to do with me and my life today? But that's a great entry point to show them, hey, actually the whole Bible, even the Old Testament, is very applicable to you in your life. And not only that, but the whole Bible, even the Old Testament, is pointing us forward to who Jesus is. Thirdly, I think that the book of Esther follows all these morally complicated characters who are operating in the moral gray areas all the time. And that's what a lot like living and following Jesus looks like today. We're surrounded by non-Christians. We're faced with all these difficult decisions, and we're not really sure what it means to follow Jesus. It's also important to note that Esther is one of the few books of the Bible that doesn't just have a woman in the title of the book, but it has a woman in the very center of the story. She's one of the main characters, and I think that's great for both our girls and our guys to see the different ways that God uses different people to achieve his purposes. It's also important to note that Esther is the only book of the Bible where God is never mentioned directly by name. I think this is intentional from the author to make us feel what the characters were feeling. Where's God? Right? Has he abandoned me? Has he abandoned his people? And I think we are invited to ask those questions along with Esther and Mordecai and the Jewish people about this story, but we're also invited to ask them about our own lives. Where is God in my life today? Has God forgotten about me? Where did he go? What is he up to in my life? With that in mind, there are three final big ideas I think students will relate to in the book of Esther. Firstly, the idea that God is in control even when we can't see him. This is so crucial for our students to get because we don't see God all the time in our everyday lives, but we can trust he is in control. Even when we don't see his name on the pages, he's still pulling the strings, operating in the shadows. Secondly, the idea of living in exile. Our students are surrounded by non-Christians. Our culture is in many ways a post-Christian culture, and we're surrounded by people who reject God daily. So what does it mean to follow Jesus? How do I follow God when the right and wrong isn't so black and white anymore? This is exactly what Esther and Mordecai were thrown into. And it's important to note that Esther and Mordecai aren't exactly the perfect examples of what it means to be moral and what it means to follow Jesus, but they are examples of what it means to wrestle with how to be faithful and how to follow God when we don't really know what the right answer might be. And third and finally, even though Esther, Mordecai, and all of our Old Testament characters are flawed, they're always pointing us beyond themselves to look at Jesus. So Esther in so many ways preempts and points us forward to who Jesus is. Esther is someone who is in the palace. She has everything she could ever want, but she's challenged to risk her own life to save her people, which of course is the very thing that Jesus will be willing to do, to give his own life to save his people and make his enemies into his sons and daughters. So my hope and prayer is that this would be a gift to you and your students in your ministry, and that you would enjoy studying the book of Esther together. Thank you.